right. Welcome to Juicing Your Game. So my name's Kyle. I started a company called Banyango Software, and I'm making a game called 321 Grenades. It's coming out soon for PC, Mac, and Xbox. So buy it.
Or else.
So like, does everybody know what I mean when I say like game juice? Can I get a show of
No.
hands? Like who does? So nobody. Okay. So just to give like a little overview, it's kind of juicing is about like making your game feel alive. It's very related to like game feel, which is another sort of like nebulous term for like game design and those sort of things. But game design on itself is sort of a different topic, so I'm going to try and describe juicing just on its own. So yeah, let's look at some examples of juicing. So this is an old match 3 game. It's an example of like bad juice. I think it's got some juice, but it's not really juicy. So when you contrast this one against another match 3, you see that this game is actually a lot more juicy. They're the same game, but this game is doing, play again here, more in terms of juice, and coincidentally has like a better feel. So we got a few more examples here. I'm sorry to whoever's green light this is, but they ripped off ink, so I don't feel too bad. If you look at the character, it's like, it's not really interacting with the world very well. It's kind of just a ball that rolls around, even though it's got the ink mechanic of splattering the colors everywhere. If you contrast that with like the actual game of ink, when you move, the character kind of has motion and bounces around, and it feels better to just move around in the world. But yeah, it's pretty much the same game. So two more examples. Sorry again to this person's green light. Fire Rabbit Adventure 63. It's a 3D game, but the camera's kind of stuck behind it. When you grab the coins, nothing really happens. So it doesn't really feel good or anything like that. So, whoops. So if you contrast that with like Mario, a game from 1996, it feels a lot more alive. The camera's an actual entity in the world. Like if you look right here, Mario's stopping, but like the camera's still got motion to it, like it's coming to a stop, like it's an actual thing in the world. And then if we go a little bit farther, I was really bad at collecting these coins, so you have to forgive me. But I don't know if you saw it there, but there's like a little particle effect when you collect a coin. So you see there's like a little sparkle when you collect a coin, so it's not, you're collecting coins just like the other one, but like there's feedback on doing that. So this is, like menus can even be juicy, like Snakebird's menu I think is really juicy. Like if you look at it, everything's moving, like the grass is moving, the clouds are moving. The only thing that's not moving is these mountains in the background here. So it feels really good, I think. And like their in-game menus sort of same thing, like everything's moving. I really love the effect that they do when you select a level. Like it feels really great to just like push that down. It's like satisfying, like bounce sort of. Okay, so like, what are some ways of like evaluating juice in other games? Basically, the way I go about it is just finding some way to like record the screen somehow. Like if you can get a GIF, it's a GIF. If it's a GIF, just save the GIF, or you can use Fraps, or I use QuickTime because it's got a screen cap thing. Basically anything that you could record the screen and then play back frame by frame at a slow speed to sort of see what's going on, because often if it's at normal speed you'll sort of miss a lot of things that are going on. So yeah, like good places to find GIFs or whatever, you know, like cartoons are a great source. Twitter's really awesome because everybody's posting their work and you can kind of take a look at what other people are doing. So like there's like the Screenshot Saturday and game dev and hashtags and stuff that you can look at. Like what happens if you are making a game where no one's done that before or something, right? Like how do you think about these sort of things if there's no examples to I guess, copy or whatever? Yeah. So the first step is to like think about your game world and like what it is, because really like your game doesn't exist, right? Like it's a simulation. Like you're describing to the players what it is, what this world is. So like you know, take account of like if there's gravity or like how your player moves. Like is your player character like fat, or like are they really powerful? You know, like will they break down a door and the door will go flying, or that sort of stuff. So it's important to have that sort of context of the world that you're describing before you go forward. The second step is to like if you've got like a little platformer going or something, or whatever your game is to record your own game and play it back in slow motion, because it's super apparent where things are just boring when it's in slow motion, and those moments will really start to jump out at you that they need something there. But yeah, what it really comes down to is identifying these moments in your game, whether it's like the player presses a button, or like a state changes, like you get a power up or whatever, or like an interaction between an objects in the game happens. Those are the kind of things you want to respond with some sort of animation, a tween, particle, audio, something. So I'm gonna go through a little example here. You'll see that. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what game this was or where I got it from. So, if we look at the player right now, he's in a grounded state. Whoever's playing the game, press the jump button. So we have an input to the system, and your state is changing from a grounded state to like an in the air state. So that's something that we want to like represent with something in the game. And a common way of doing that is to like kind of squash the player a bit, so it looks like they're like pushing against the ground and they're stretching out in the air. So that's where you see this like one frame of the player object just squishing in the X direction there. So we're in the air, cruising around. We land on this platform, and that's another state change. You've gone from being in the air to not being in the air. So that's something we want to like respond back with some sort of like animation. And here we've used or whoever made this has used the sort of like squash the player because the ground's pushing up, and you know, just a traditional animation thing. But also because this blue thing is water, right? Like the platform that it lands on is interacting with the water too, right? So we kind of want to do something there and show that that's happening, and so there's like a little wave that they put on the vertex, and then they jump again. So, and then we go over to this other platform, and we land on it, but you'll notice something odd. You probably wouldn't notice this at full speed, but it's really apparent at slow speed. Like this small platform here was like, went way down when we hit it, and this one didn't go down at all. So like, that's communicating something to the player, like that first platform weighed less, because that's my understanding of the real world. Like if you hit something on water that weighs less, it's going to go down in the water more than something that's heavier, right? And those are the sort of things that you need to like understand your players are coming to your game with, like that sort of contextual information of the world, and you need to really like respond to that. Because if you didn't move either of those boxes, the player probably wouldn't notice, but they would feel something was wrong with the game. And it's really breaking that like context that they have, that they're bringing to the game. So yeah, like how do you choose what to do, like showing off an effect? And I really think that the real world is a great example of what you should be doing, because basically anyone who approaches your game is going to be a person in the real world and has more or less experienced, like gravity is a universal experience, right? Like that's not something you need to really explain to someone. But if you're not doing it right, then something seems off about the world you're trying to explain to them. Barring that, there's Disney and sort of traditional animation is a really good place to look for this stuff too. And more so, basically, don't just pop something onto the screen. If you are moving something linearly, kill it with fire. So it's important to remember that like each one of these moments sort of like contributes to the grander scheme of your game. So it's important to keep like consistency between those moments. Like if you're doing like a realistic first-person shooter, like don't do some like comic squash and stretch effect or something in there, because that's really gonna like break the theme that you're going for. But other than that, just try and do what players are unconsciously expecting. Don't break that link between the simulation and the player, and try and use these moments to communicate the world that you're creating. And don't use linear tweens. Kill them with fire. So there's some more info here on the slides if you guys want to check it out. But that's it. Any questions?
When should you not be juicing it up?
When should you not be juicing it up?
Yeah.
Never.
Well, I guess he's asking, can you overdo something?
Yeah, well, so that's what I kind of mean with your theme. Like, if your game is more serious, don't do a whole bunch of like ridiculous effects. And that's kind of where the game design part of this comes into it. Like, if you're doing so many effects that the player's completely distracted, you're kind of distracting them from what you were trying to tell them, like in terms of game design. Then maybe that's overdoing it.
I actually found that with the second GIF you played of that match 3.
Oh, yeah?
I was like, what is happening? I don't understand.
What is GC?
What is GC?
Any other questions?
It's not so much like a question, but I think the one thing is the disconnect. Like when you're working on a game, everything's digital and there's no feel to it, right? Like you're just dealing with bits and bytes and whatever that's creating the image, the pixels that you see. But if you're trying to like recreate any kind of situation, like try to treat it as if it is somewhat realistic and never forget that something has mass. And so therefore, like you say, there should never be linear motion, that everything requires some kind of force to accelerate depending on what it's doing. And if you treat everything in that regard, then I think you probably stand a good chance of avoiding those like very static and rigid looking games, because like you say, everything will have those nice motions where you're accelerating into like a running animation, whereas like, or if you're stopping in that Mario 64, the camera still has momentum and things like that. Like you got to think about mass and inertia and like what properties everything has.
Do you want to comment here? Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Any more questions? Cool. All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for coming out, everybody. If you have a game to demo, please bust it out, get people playing, just walk around, ask whoever. Just be like, hey, you, play my game.